which connects to a recent Rasmussen RMG research poll, which was conducted for the Committee to Unleash Prosperity. Now, Rasmussen was interested in a demographic that he felt would be an outlier when it came to views. The demographic was Americans holding a postgraduate degree, earning more than $150,000 a year, and living in a high-density area. That's what most of us would define or reference as elite. So Rasmussen asks these questions in his poll, and he breaks out how this elite demographic answered the questions and how those answers differed from the rest of Americans. The results were really interesting, so let's go through some of those. Among those elite, 74% said their finances are getting better, which compared to 20% of the rest of voters who said their finances were getting better. And if you broke out a subset of these elites to be those that obtained their degrees from elite Ivy League institutions, those responding that their finances were getting better was 88%. That elite demographic, it gave President Biden an 84% approval rating. 84%. They don't like him, they adore him. And the rest, or the non-elites, gave President Biden a 40% approval rating. 89% of the elites had a favorable view of university professors. 79% approved the way that journalists go about doing their job. 78% approval for lawyers and union leaders when it came to approval of those professions. And 67% approval for Congress, according to the elites as defined by the Rasmussen poll. Now, if you want to go from the shocking to the frightening on this poll, consider that 2/3 of the elites said they prefer a candidate for office who believes that teachers and educational professionals, not parents, should decide what children are taught. That's right out of some dystopian movie or book. And unfortunately, it reflects what much of the higher education system and the public K through 12 systems throughout this nation are aiming to do. Now, the poll results when it comes to the elite demographic, it's getting worse, if you can believe that. Almost 50% of elites believe that America provides too much individual freedom. And meanwhile, 60% of voters believe that there's too much government control. Now, that's what you call contrasting views. Get this, 77% of elites support the strict rationing of gas, meat, and electricity to fight climate change. I guess now we know who's setting climate change policies these days. And I've told you all along that climate change policies have nothing to do about atmospheric levels of CO2, and they've got everything to do with control of the individual across society and economy. 2/3 of elite Ivy League graduates, they favor banning gasoline-powered cars and gas stoves and non-essential air travel. Well, I would love to know who gets to decide what's essential and non-essential. Of course, all of it in the name of the environment. Meanwhile, 70% of average voters, they're unwilling to pay more than $100 a year in taxes or costs for climate. But 70% of elites said they'd be willing to pay $250 up to whatever it takes for climate. And I'm sure that those elites would love to dictate that you do the same as well. Now, these elites, as defined by Rasmussen, they constitute a small minority of total voters in America. But there is a twist, because the small minority of elites have outsized influence and in many instances outright control the major gears of Western societies and economies. They run the universities, they constitute the media, they sit in all the higher echelons of government, and they set policy from that perch. And they run large businesses and industries. Now, with that outsized impact, you don't need elites to constitute huge percentages of the voter base. In fact, with this type of control, elites can set policies no matter what the majority of voters may think or desire. Now, you can check out the Rasmussen poll performed for the Committee to Unleash Prosperity online. And Kimberly Strassel wrote an excellent article about this topic in the Wall Street Journal back in mid to late January. The title of it was The Them versus Us Election. It's a great read. The poll results and the Strassel article and the definition of the elite demographic, these things culminate in a quite efficient summary and validation of the underlying themes in my book, Precipice, the left's campaign to destroy America. And although I wrote that book years ago, looking at where the minds of the elites are today and where they are driving Western societies, they serve as proof points for the hypothesis laid out in Precipice. Precipice has aged quite well the past 3+ years. And, that doesn't make me happy to say that, because it's unfortunate for America. I wish Precipice would have been a false alarm, but instead, what's going on in America is definitely not a drill.